I'm sorry, but I must do this in English because my Spanish is very bad. But it is great to be back in beautiful Colombia. I came here and swam in these waters as a boy, just east of here. And I spent many, many months when I was in my 20s, right here in the old town of Cartagena. And I must tell you, the progress here is amazing. In just 30 years, the old town is so beautiful. And as I look in Bogota, in Medellin, I see technology leading the way for the economy of Colombia. And I know, as a lifelong security person, that it is security that enables the technology. So it is security in Colombia that is enabling the growth of the economy. And that is why I'm so thankful that Andy.com invited me down. I live in Silicon Valley, and I spend my life working with the great companies of the world, in the great cities of the world, to try and bring better security to their infrastructure, to their banks and their power companies, and the information infrastructure that drives global growth. So I want to spend just a few minutes talking to you this morning about my perspective based on all of the companies I see around the world and what that means for the Colombian companies to be able to jump ahead and really drive the growth of their economy. So I have spent my life in security. I wrote a book about it, which talks about the Colombian security market 10 years ago. And now as I come back and I meet some of these great customers here that Unisys has in Colombia, I see that what we projected did come true. Fantastic people, innovative use of technology, great domestic market, great regional markets, really a driving entrepreneurship throughout the country. And I'm very, very, very excited to see all the progress that Colombia economy has made just in the 10 years since I wrote my book. I've also done my .com times. I built a big company. I spend a lot of time talking about these things, but mostly what I do is try and help companies have better security. And with that, I found 5 principles that are new for this year that the best companies in the world are starting to embrace. And I want to walk through those 5 with all of you and help to understand locally how to adopt these global changes in security. So here's a quick agenda just to run through, but we'll start with why 2015, why this year? Because you could not do these things last year. And here's what's changing, everything. The IT models, now it's with the devices, the mobile, the cloud, the working from the playa, everything has changed. The regulations all over the world, much, much harder to comply with, more expensive to comply with. If you take credit cards, very expensive to manage those regulations. If you have private information from customers, very expensive. And they change from country to country to country. So if you have a customer in France and a supplier in China and a business partner in America, all these regulations now apply to your business. And now, in this year, everything is connected. You don't have a separate data center in Medellin. You have a connected data center in the world. Everything is connected to your customers, to your suppliers, to your employees. And the threats, you read about the threats every week. They're real. They go after anyone that has something of value. Colombian companies have many things of value. You cannot hide in Colombia. The bad guys will find the value anywhere in the world, and they will try and take it from you. These threats are getting very, very real, very sophisticated. So with all this change, 2015, this year, is the time for Colombian companies to rethink their security. Yesterday's security will fail against today's changed environment. I spend half of my time volunteering with international law enforcement to try and take down the bad guys. We go in, we find out who they are, what they've done. Sometimes we stop it before it happens, but unfortunately many times we figure out what happened too late, and bad things have happened. But there's a lot of talk whenever we have a takedown about who did it. Who's the bad guy? Called attribution. And everyone in the media, they want to know who did this? Who did it to Sony? Who did it to Ashley Madison? Who did it to the US government? They want to know who. And so they pick one of these. They throw a dart and they pick one. Today it will be this one. Okay. In reality, I've worked on so many of these, hundreds of these throughout my life. It's never one. It's always many. All these bad guys work together to target you or your company or your business or your country. They all work together in a very tight mesh on what's called the Tor, which is a sort of underground internet that works in the same wires but is generally used to facilitate trading all these threats. And this is a new one here. We don't talk about it too much, but this, starting the last 6 months, global law enforcement has noticed it's not just a foreign intelligence agency, a big country that has all this wherewithal. They say, well, we're going to go and do this. It's the employees of those agencies that are now starting to use all that power to go steal for themselves. It's happened in many countries around the world. So sometimes when you see this country is being blamed, you might now know it might just be a bad employee, like we all have at some times. So the threats are very real. The threats are here in Colombia. And there are really 5 good things, new things, that every company and organization in Colombia should be looking at adopting this year. But the first is a change of the mindset. Today's security does not work. Today's security is like an M&M, the candy. Nice hard shell, big firewalls, big walls all around your organization. But in reality, your organization is your suppliers and your cloud providers and your mobile phones. You cannot put a wall around it. So today's security no longer works. You need to think a new way to do your security. And the way we recommend is a new concept called micro-segmentation, micro-segment, and written that way. Micro-segmentation says, at some point, even if you have big walls, someone will break into your organization. It's happened to every one of your organizations, every one of my organizations. You try and keep out almost everyone, but one person somewhere will make a mistake, and they'll get in. And once they get in, they move around, then they move up, and then they steal everything you have. It happens over and over and over. And the change this year is there's now something you can do about it. Instead of saying, I'll spend all my money to keep people out, but I know it won't work. Instead say, I'll try and keep people out, but I'll also assume that someone will get in. And when we get in, we'll say, if they break into my system over here in this red M&M, there's no way they can ever touch the money in the green M&M or the personal records in the blue M&M. They're locked into their own little segment. That wasn't possible. It wasn't economically feasible, technically possible 2 years ago. Now, it's the number one sweeping the world change that security is being brought into new companies with. So instead of one wall around your organization, lots of tiny little micro segments. It's inexpensive, it's easy to manage, and it keeps people out once they've gotten in. Yes, they may be able to steal my email, but they won't steal yours, or yours, or yours. They won't steal the money from the bank. They won't embarrass you on the front pages of the newspapers. You can manage a little attack. It's the big ones that ruin companies and ruin careers. So look to micro-segmentation, the number one change in the security world for the greatest companies of the world. And it's able to be adopted. It's being adopted right here in Medellin today. But it's able to be adopted throughout Colombia business. The second is how we look at security. We used to, and still many data centers are filled with these racks of routers and firewalls and all these security devices. And when you program one of these devices, you say, this device can talk to that device. So you write a rule that says that. I go in to see many companies that have 100,000 rules on one device. Because you keep adding them and adding them. I now need to go here and here and here. Instead, change your mindset and start doing identity-based security. Use the fact that you have an identity in your company and use that in order to allow access. The third principle is to understand that your enterprise, what you are responsible for keeping secure, is many things beyond your four walls. You are responsible for keeping secure your data when it is in someone else's cloud. It's still your responsibility. You're responsible for keeping it secure when it's on your employees' mobile devices at home that they share with their children. And you're responsible for your suppliers' security when you allow them to interact with you. Because any one mistake from any of them can ruin your company and ruin your career. So you need to embrace the overall ecosystem. You can't say, that's not my problem. You have to say, it is my problem. Let me help you secure it. And there's great new technology this year that makes that now possible for the first time. Next, I want to talk about the infrastructure. The infrastructure in Colombia is the lifeblood. It's what drives future growth for the country, for the economy here. You need reliable power. You need reliable water. You need reliable fuel. You need reliable telecommunications and banking systems. All those infrastructure systems run on what are called SCADA devices. These are little tiny computers that open and close valves and turn on and off lights without any humans involved. It's computing, but not like a computer. It's a device that goes out on the power lines and in the oil rigs. And these devices are now under attack by organizations that want to disrupt the economy or disrupt part of the economy in Colombia. So these devices, not unlike protecting your computers and your networks, these devices now must be protected as well. And they are everywhere throughout Colombia, and more going in every day. And when you have the Internet of Things, and you have all these small devices everywhere in our homes, and our automobiles start to drive us around without drivers, which is happening in my hometown in Palo Alto today. We have the Google cars everywhere on the streets. It's unnerving. But the SCADA devices are throughout Colombia, and you must have a security plan that embraces securing them as well as your computers. It used to be two separate things. Now it must be one. Next, this is a big change in the mind for running a security scheme, and no one follows it, and everyone should. And that is, they say, if you give me all this budget, then I'll be able to give you some security. But they know they'll never get enough budget to do everything they want to do. So they say, okay, we'll do the security, but we'll have these big gaps. You have to design within the money that you have. You have to architect something that will work the best with the budgets that you have. Budgets are tight all over the world, but you can still design with that in mind. You can't design a system that says, oh, and we're going to need to hire 10,000 security experts because you can't find them anywhere in the world. It's very hard to find qualified security personnel. So you need to buy machines and technology that does a lot of that work for you, not assume that you'll be able to get unlimited personnel. And finally, on the users, your employees and your customers, you cannot require that they become security experts in order for your system to work. Most people don't want to see security. They just want it to work. They expect when they trade information, private information to your company, that you will keep it private. But they don't want to go through 6 passwords and ringbacks to their phones and their mobiles. They just want it to work. So you can't expect them to know how to do encryption. And you can't expect them to learn about multi-factor authentication. You have to make your systems transparent to the users. Make it invisible for the users. And that way you design with efficiency in mind instead of designing with complexity in mind. You don't require things that you know you will not get. And this is now possible with the advances of security technology just in the past year or so. And so leading companies around the world are throwing out their old plans and they're redoing them with the new realities that they have to work with. And finally, and I think this is the most important, and that is security of a company, of an enterprise, of a government agency is no longer an IT issue. This is not about routers and antivirus and firewalls and how many millions of events did you see today. Those are not what bring companies down. When a threat comes in and tackles a company, it is a business decision. It's a business risk. And so you need the business leaders of a company now involved in rethinking their security. It is the CEO and the board members and the chief financial officers that need to say, we keep spending money on security that we know will fail. So we are now going to rethink security together for our organization. And we're going to redeploy that money in a system that will work. New advanced technology. Better use of the budgets that we do have. Better use of the resources, human resources that we do have. Working collaboratively with our peers and our partners throughout the country and throughout the region. All this can actually make a system that will work, but it must now come from the top. It is not going to come from the security office or the IT office anymore. These are business issues. If the business is attacked, the business is at risk. The CEO will lose their job. The company, in some cases, will just disappear with these attacks, and they are not going away. So it is absolutely urgent that Colombian companies embrace the global standards and the global changes that are happening. So to summarize them again, micro-segmentation. Download white papers, read about it. Frost & Sullivan, a big independent research firm, has a great white paper on it. But learn how to bring micro-segmentation in. Assume the bad guys will get in. And still you can save the day. Switch to identity-based. Stop trying to manage all those firewall rules. It becomes your biggest cost of labor. Just switch. Easy to switch. Embrace your whole ecosystem. Don't say it's not my fault, because you're the one that's going to lose your job. Include the SCADA devices here throughout Colombia. If they go down, you go down. You can have the best system in the world for your business, but if there's no power, you're in trouble from a business perspective. So support the improvements of critical infrastructure and your piece of that throughout Colombia. And finally, design for efficiency, being realistic, be thinking about what will happen, what you can do, the budgets you have. And when you do all 5 of these things, and you switch now, you're not saying we did it wrong yesterday, but now things have changed. So we have to have a new way to address security in Colombia. In the private sector, in the public sector, everyone can work together, and we can make this happen together. With that, I thank you very much for your attention, and I hope you have a great Andicom 30 conference. Thank you.